Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Edge Technology Innovation Hub for a brand new series called Beta Test. It's called that for two reasons. The first is probably more obvious than the second. Since this is primarily a technology integration channel, the tech definition for beta test focuses on testing software and hardware to see how it performs. The other definition is for our avid rock climbers out there. In rock climbing, beta is any information that is shared about a climb or a route that is taken by others. Beta test episodes are going to be high-paced and laser-focused on one tool or concept at a time. Either myself or a fellow educator will share an EdTech tool, a lesson idea, and an example or two with you in the hopes that you might be able to use something that we share somewhere down the line. Without further ado, let's jump right into our first beta test. Here we go with our first beta test, and in this episode we are talking about Canva.com. And Canva is a graphic design platform that's used to create social media graphics or presentations, posters, documents, and other visual content. Some of you may have been using this already, and at the beginning of the pandemic, Canva actually opened up their educational version for free for educators all over the world, which is truly phenomenal. And the amount of content that's on there and the amount of resources and tools that are on here are astounding. So I recommend that you check it out if you haven't been on Canva yet, because just the resources for teachers alone, and then the possibility for students, is endless. So in beta test, remember, we are going to be diving into a tech tool that has been used in the classroom, and a lesson that it could center around, and then providing some examples of maybe some generated content that students could produce as a result of that lesson. So in this episode, we're talking about Canva. We're going to be focusing on a lesson centered around animation, and then we are going to be diving into 3 examples of using stop motion, using perspective, and using layering. So to get started, I recommend going in and jumping into create a design. And in the design, I jump right into video. So animation, we are going to make an animated video. So I'm going to go in here, and it's going to open up a new screen with all of our editing tools. All right, and first you have to sort of think about the concept that you want to do. When I start talking about animation with students, in animation, there's a couple key concepts. You want to make sure that when you start doing like stop motion, that you are changing just micro sections of the film or scenes at a time. And if we open up something like an open source software like OpenTunes, we have keyframes that we're changing slight variations over and over and over again until we get a smooth transition. We can do something similar like that in Canva by just doing multiple pages down here at the bottom. So it's sort of a workaround, but we can toggle back and forth between pages, we can copy and paste, we can duplicate pages, change a few things to create a smooth transition, and then we can actually export it as either a GIF or we can export it as a video. And what I would recommend doing right away is shortening your timing down to maybe like a ½ second. And what that's going to do, what that's going to do is speed up those keyframes and how quickly those are going to transition. And you can play with those, but I'm going to set that up because I'm going to start duplicating sort of this master slide as I start going through. So let's say I want a, let's just go and grab a figure that I want to spin. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this triangle. Nothing crazy, nothing fancy. I'll show you some other examples here. But I have this triangle, and let's say I want this triangle to spin, and that's my animation. I'm going to go down and highlight the page that it's on, and there's a shortcut that you can use. Control and then D. Control and D for duplicate. So I'm going to click on the page, Control D for duplicate, and that gives me a new page. I'm going to click on my object, and I'm going to rotate it maybe like 5 degrees. And then I'm going to click on my page again and duplicate, click on my object, and I'm going to rotate it to 10 degrees. Okay, so we have our triangle here, and we have gone frame by frame, just modifying the frame slightly, changing the degree just ever so slightly, and we can even do, instead of degrees, we could change the size, so it grows or shrinks. We could change the motion or movement, and you'll see that in some of the other examples. So if I were to click through each one of these, you can see that there is a transition or a feel or a start to feel about an animation to it. So if I click the play button for 5 seconds, we have an animated figure on the screen now. And I can actually download and export this as a video or a GIF, so I can actually keep the animation for later on. So students can really start to play around with some of the features here. So in under 3 minutes that I was just messing around here, I was able to get an animated figure on the screen. So to just give you some examples of some other ideas, we actually can start replicating objects in real life. So if you want to say that you're working on some physics unit, or you're working on an example of what would happen if you drop something and you're working on gravity, or if you're rolling an object and you want students to simulate things, you can actually have them set up an animation of that. And here's an example of a ball that is dropping from the top of the screen, and it's going to bounce, and then it's going to roll and then bounce off the side of the screen. So again, we can make this as complex as we want, but this actually, we can start getting this stop motion film idea. So we stop it, we change it a little bit, and then we take this frame by frame. So here we go, we have a ball, it bounces, and then it rolls across the screen, and you can see that I've changed the objects just slightly to show that it's rolling, and then it bounces off, and that's that type of animation. And then another way that we can show animation is by perspective. So perspective is changing the depth that a character either comes towards the screen or goes away from a screen. So you can replicate this even using Canva. So just by simply changing the flow or the size of the image. So if I start clicking through these keyframes, you can see the stick figure guy running towards the screen. So I have him, here he's running backwards. We have him starting off at the beginning, and he starts running towards the screen, and it is giving that perception of depth to the animation. And then lastly, this last animation, I actually put some GIF files in here, so I actually have animation that's stacked on the animation. But what I have also put in here is some scene creation. So you'll see a rolling screen as well, so I can add some landscape to my animations. I can also add some layers to provide depth to my characters. So here we have a girl that's walking across a landscape, and as I start clicking through the frame, she's walking, there's a tree, and you can see the sun in the background go behind the tree, giving that perception of layers, and that was the end of the scene. So very short, but you can start to see how you can make little mini movies with your students just by using Canva. And all of these projects, once students start to get the hang of it, don't take that long to produce unless you make them a little bit more complex. So in Canva, for this beta test, just sharing with you that you can use all of these tools, and sort of the sky's the limit, to create some really creative and really complex animations just by using various frames in Canva, just by creating some artwork on here, some graphic design, replicating it, changing it slightly, and then speeding up the keyframes. So that's it for beta test today. We are going to dive into another beta test next time. Thanks for watching, and this is The Edge.